Good evening. We usually start our meetings by having our invocation. So we are going to start with that right now. And Councilman Hopkins will do that for us tonight.
Holy Father, we thank you for the blessing of this day that you've given us. It's beautiful spring weather. We thank you, Father, for the bluebonnets that we see along the highway. Father, we thank you for the hummingbirds that are coming to our theaters, for these oak trees that are going crazy, for all these blessings. For all the people that have come here tonight to be involved in their community, Father, we give you thanks for them as well. We ask, Father, on behalf of this council this evening, that you would grant us wisdom, grant us discernment, that we might make good and wise decisions for our community, that our community might be preserved, and that we might be good stewards of it. We thank you, Father, for these blessings in Jesus' name.
Amen. Amen. Okay, we'll call our meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. and we'll start with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the heavenly flag, I pledge allegiance to the one faith, under God, one and indivisible.
Good evening. We do have a quorum tonight. Councilmember Goff will be absent tonight. Okay. We're going to start with our reports and presentations, and we'll be doing 2A, Planning Department update.
Mayor and members of council, we've been busy. Primarily right now working on standard stuff coming over the counter, plats and building permits. We've been working on code amendments. We have loaned one of our planners to serve in the interim city secretary role for a few months. So that's going to slow us down a little bit, but me and he will have our shoulders to the grindstone and we'll work through that. Beyond that, most pressing items we have are on this agenda. So I'll be happy to take any questions you have outside of those.
Thank you. Thank you, Danny. Okay, and we're going to not do 2B tonight. Okay, and we'll move on to, no, 2B will. Regular agenda items. 3A, receive staff report regarding March 3, 2026 meeting with Texas Water Company officials.
I come with no Shakespeare quotes, I'm sorry.
Up your game, Mike.
Just a very dry report. So item 3A is receive staff report on the March 3rd, 2026 meeting with the Texas Water Company representatives. The meeting generally covered 3 topics that were germane to council's direction previously received. The first broad topic was Texas Water Commission site selection process and an update therein. So I'll make a couple of points with that, then we'll move through the next 2 points. Texas Water Company has not selected their pumping station location. That was apparent and stated to us in several different ways throughout the presentation. They are engaged at this time, or at least effective March 3rd, in negotiations with property owners outside the city boundaries of Bulverde. And only if those negotiations fail would they continue to pursue SUP 25-06. So if you read between the leaves, it sounds as though they are done with SUP 25-06. They wish to keep that open. They've not formally withdrawn that SUP, but again, every indication from the executive director and her staff indicate that they're not pursuing that direction any longer. Just wish to keep their options open and options on the table. The second broad topic that was discussed was the water availability report. This is the 20-year water supply report that Texas Water Company has been working on for some time. The draft report has been submitted to Comal County for review and approval. Once reviewed, the Texas Water Company will walk that report through city staff and city council and give us a briefing on that report. The details of that briefing are a little light. We don't know if that will be another meeting similar to the one we had, or if they will come here to council. I would prefer, and again, I'll take council's direction on this, but I would prefer them to come to council so we can have a public audience and and do that report. Another question or another statement that they had made to us, I believe the mayor had asked, about those reports single out Bulverde water supply and Bulverde centric issues. And the response from Texas Water Company was that Bulverde is not singled out in the plan. They view the world through water sources. So the water source for the city of Bulverde is the Park Shores plant, which is on the north shore of Canyon Lake. So they don't single out Bulverde per se. That's how their view of the world is. They're concerned with that water source and all the straws and pipes that lead from that water source points therein. So we are linked to the Park Shores plant or facility on the North Shore. That's how they view the world. That's how they respond to questions. So that's the second point. The third point of interest was the water service agreements. And these are the agreements that allow for a commitment by Texas Water Company to potential developers that are necessary for development to occur, at least specifically in Bulverde. In the city of Bulverde, only one current development holds a water service agreement. That would be the Thornbrook development. The earliest additional agreements would come after late 2026. That's not to say, let me explain it just a little bit. I'm not saying that additional agreements will come at that time. To clarify, that is the earliest that they could come. In all likelihood, it will be later than that. So that was the update on water service agreements. There were a host of other topics that were covered, none of them germane to SUP 25-06. None of them really of general interest. I thought a lot of it was Texas Water Company wanting to make their points, very sincere in their desires to get their word out and make points regarding how they want to be a good community partner. They want people to understand that they don't want to build ugly facilities. They want to be in harmony with the neighborhoods. But again, a lot of comments of that general nature that went on for multiple minutes that I didn't think were germane to our discussion this evening are the motion from council earlier. So those were the three major points from the Texas Water Company. I'll leave it to the other attendees to characterize the general nature of the meeting should you desire, but that's the conclusion of my formal report.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Moving on to 3B, discussion and consider action regarding the city's audit RFP.
Council. This is just kind of a discussion to figure out whether we want to proceed with a request proposal for a new auditor. I know earlier in the year there was some questions about, had we done that, and at that time it was too soon or too late to start looking for a new auditor. So I just want your direction on whether you want me to proceed with the RFP. Got some pros and cons that I listed. I don't want to read it to you guys, but it's up to you. Give us some advice, and staff will move in whatever direction.
Any comments? Councilman Hayes?
I don't see a reason not to go out and see what else is available out there. They've been our auditor for quite a while. I felt like maybe there's some stuff that could have been brought to our attention a little better. But overall, I guess they did a pretty good job. But I don't think it hurts to, go fishing and see what price-wise and everything else, what's available.
Thanks. Councilman Sander?
I'm sorry, Mayor, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Do the comments first. Go ahead.
We had some concerns about the previous audits, and I think that's what drew us to make that conclusion to solicit for an RFP. We ran out of time at that point, so my understanding that this year's audit looked a lot cleaner, probably better. But I think in the interest and the betterment of the community, it probably is a good thing to do an RFP and see what we get, and see what other firms can do as well, and see what the contrast may be. So,
Councilman Hawkins?
I guess first, just a general statement. Generally, the reasoning for an RFP usually is to keep your pricing competitive, and secondarily, it's usually to possibly add some capacity or experience that you are not getting or feel that you're not getting from the current provider. I've done quite a few RFPs. I used to be a purchasing manager and had a $50 million budget, so I'm very familiar with it. So I guess the first question I would ask is, what are we paying for the service, and do we feel that price is competitive? What are we likely to gain? Does our current provider have any shortcomings? And would leverage be possible if we leveraged a provider who also had other interests in the city so that we might fund the services?
I think possibly there could be some leverage in there. I will tell you, they do come in under budget, what we had budgeted for this year. I think it was almost $2,700 or $2,300 below what we budgeted. There could be, competitive, between if anyone were to respond, if any of the other auditors were to respond to the RFP, we could put it out there. And I do know that they are interested, our current auditors are also interested in providing a response as well, or at least that was the last conversation that we had, because we had already talked about the RFP previously, and she was aware. So she said she would be interested in doing that as well. So, we'll just put it out there and see what happens.
Councilman Watts. Oh, I'm sorry, are you done?
So you feel they are competitive with their current price?
I do, and I don't feel that there's any shortcomings, in the audit. I think they're very thorough in what they do. I know that the council was given a 50,000 foot view, whereas I'm here working with them in the weeds and pulling invoices and data. So for a week every day, and literally they have access to my office and they pull. I think they do a pretty good job. But it's up to you. If it makes you feel better, absolutely we can go out on our.
Councilman Watson.
So aside from the potential cost savings, I'm reading in your notes that periodic rotation of audit firms is considered a best practice.
Yeah.
So I think maybe having fresh eyes might be of some value, but I want to balance that against the additional work that then would be required of staff to bring in a new audit firm. I know that we're coming off a season of a couple of years now of pretty intense work.
Mm-hmm.
So for me personally, it would be a wash. We'd be placing, I think, additional staff hours on you to bring in a new auditor, but I'm neutral to the idea generally.
In the engagement letter that we have with our current auditor, she is available to provide data and historical support and all of that to a new auditor if we were to choose a different firm. So she would provide all of her backup and support.
How long have they been around?
Councilman Kravitz.
I'm not sure. They've been there
Before I started.
for quite some time.
Councilman
Now, we
Kravitz. Now, Councilman Kravitz.
Yeah, it is normal practice to change auditors every once in a while, and we have had the same auditor for a long time, like Danny said. I'm pretty neutral on it. The only concern I have is the time and workload required on staff to put out an RFP as well as onboarding and educating a new audit firm. You think this is good timing this year to do this, or should we wait till next year?
I don't know that it's ever good timing, but
Right.
it's just, that's accounting for you. It's
Right.
just always, you always think you've got a good time and you don't, but yeah, we'll make it happen if that's what you want.
Okay. Yeah, I could go either way.
My thought process is that we've had the same auditors for a long time. It's good practice to switch them out and get some fresh perspectives out of it. And, if their willingness is to provide whoever else that may come in, the documentation that they've used in the past, as you said, and you have put everything into order the way you have now, it should not be that much more of a workload.
Okay.
I understand it is going to add some to it, but I also think that for best practices that it's good to go out and do that. We're talking that we've had the same auditor for 12 years, over 12 years now, and we should go out and see what the pricing looks like, see what's available, and just in being transparent with our budget, I think it's a good idea to go out and see, what we have out there, how much it's gonna cost. And, you know, and really look at having maybe some fresh perspective in the city.
I mean, we may end up selecting it. Sure. It's just,
We met.
see what the pricing is.
So what's the timeline look on an RFP?
I was thinking I could have one put together and available probably by the end of April.
Okay.
Give them probably 30 to 45 days to respond. So that would be maybe by June, July, and then hopefully get on the books, make a decision July, August, and then get on their schedule for again, the earlier in January.
Any questions?
Good.
Any more questions? Mike?
I did have a concern, and I base this on my experience over the last maybe 12, 15 years. The trend that I've seen, the pool of accounting firms that do municipal auditing is about 1/4 of what it used to be. It's just really shrunk over the years. And we had a situation in Yukon, my last community, where we went out for an audit and we got 0 responses. Now they've stated that they will respond, our current auditor, so that gives me some level of comfort. But just if we're going to go down that road, just understand that it is not an insignificant possibility that we come back to and say we did not receive any responses to the audit, where we would then be negotiating with our current auditor for a 1-year extension. So that's also a possibility. That's in the mix. And the other thing that happens, and I've seen this extensively, is municipal auditing is a unique beast. It really is. You're not going to take a public sector, and when I say public sector accountant, I think you all know what I'm talking about. My wife is a public sector accountant. You're not going to take someone who's never touched municipal budget or environment and drop them in and say, we're your auditor. That does not work. That is a failure of epic proportions.
Mhm.
And so it is possible that we would have that to occur, where we get those kinds of bids from people who don't have the experience. And usually council would be aware of that. You'd have all of that in the bid responses, and you would see that. But that would be a dramatic workload increase. And I think you would be extremely disappointed in the product that you would receive. So those are the things that necessarily would weigh against going out. But again, Sharon has done a good job of presenting the information, and we look forward to your direction on the matter.
So, Mr. Castro, it doesned matter what kind of RFP we put out there, we always are at the mercy of receiving people that aren't qualified to do the jobs. So it could, whether it's for public works or for accounting or for whatever position or whatever job we're putting out there, that is a possibility in all those avenues. So I don't foresee that as that being an issue, in that, yes, it'll occur. And yes, there is a possibility that we may not have anybody, respond to our request. But I think that we owe it to our community and to us and to the city that we at least go out and try to do this and see what's out there, and we can at least evaluate what the prices are and what the going are, and feel good about at least we went through the process of getting it done. Okay.
Yeah, I would recommend even, I don't know if there's cooperatives or TML, I'm sure has a list of people that have done work, and y'all reaching out to them, to those companies to see what we can get. And then I would hope that the scoring matrix would eliminate some of those contenders that maybe don't have as much experience.
Sure.
Where's our current auditor based?
I'm sorry?
Where's our auditor based now?
Here in San Antonio.
So what is the chance we're looking at somebody out of Austin or farther, and we're gonna pay their window time to come in?
It's in the contract.
As I understand it, I've been told there are 3 firms here in San Antonio that do municipal audits. And then we could reach out outside as well. So just depending if they respond. If we do have an outside auditor come in, we will have to pay for lodging and meals and all of that travel. But I mean, that's something that we'll look at with the.
Right.
Yeah.
What is the amount that we pay for the audit? I know you said it.
$14,700.
Any more questions? All right, I'll make a motion that, we, how am I gonna put this? I don't want to write this. That we consider, going out for a new cities audit for the RFP.
A second.
Yeah, proceed.
All right, yes, to proceed with this,
So just a point of order, are we considering it or are we authorizing staff to go out for an order?
to go out for an RFP.
Okay.
You seconded it? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll get it together and I'll let you know, at the next council meeting, the dates. I'll have a better calendar in mind. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you, Sharon.
Tracy, discussion of possible action to provide direction to staff on the board and commission application and appointment process, including review procedures and timelines for upcoming June 2026 appointment.
All right, Mayor and members of the City Council, staff just wants to know how you'd like to handle the annual round of board and commission appointments this year. Over time, we've employed different procedures. Sometimes city council members would canvass the community, come up with their own names, and come to the June meeting ready to make suggestions and make appointments. At other times, you've had us go through a formal application process with the board, including to require existing board members who are up for reappointment to reapply if they want to continue serving. And then we provide those applications to you before the meeting to review and so forth. How would y'all, do you have a preference for this year?
Councilman Hayes?
I think the application process is a good process. I think we learned something looking at that. If we have somebody in mind that, doesn't keep us from going out there and being bushes and deciding who we personally might like, and then we can just direct them to apply. So,
I agree with
Councilman
Councilman.
Henry?
I agree with Councilman Hayes. I mean, the application process, they've been the best way, and even if we have a candidate we're interested in, we encourage them to do the same thing, so to apply.
Councilman Hawkins?
Agree.
Okay. Councilman Watson?
Agree with the addition of an interview process. I think interviewing candidates that we're interested in appointing is a step we have not consistently taken. And I'd like to see that added to the process. I think people on paper are different than people in person. And I think these positions are significant to the city. And so I think we should add, however we figure this out in the phase of things, we allow adequate time for us to meet, select candidates we'd like to interview, and then have those interviews before we make a final selection.
Councilman Kravitz?
Yeah, I have no problem with the application process.
So if there's a desire to have an interview on it, we will probably end up posting a notice or a call for applications in mid-April, with an initial review happening in mid-May, where council will review and narrow the field.
We'll do those in a workshop.
We would probably need to call a special meeting
Okay.
for that.
For the review of the,
Yeah.
okay. And then from there, we can set up the interviews.
Yeah.
Okay.
May I ask a question? Does our current process always include polling existing members to find out whether they'd like to continue? Or are we requiring them to reapply?
It hasn't always, so you guys need to let us know if you want existing members to formally reapply. We usually ask them if they'd like to serve, but we don't, in some years, we haven't asked them to formally submit an application. In some years,
I don't think it hurts to have them. It's a one page.
Mm-hmm.
You show they're still interested.
Yeah, because that way we don't run into an issue that maybe mid-year they want
Because I
to
mean,
get off.
it's a time commitment.
It is.
Yeah.
Sure.
We want to make a motion of what we want to do here. So we'll make a motion that we would like to go out for the application process for the boards and commissions for this, starting in June, April. You'll do that in April.
With the goal of completing by June.
And then from there to work on setting up the time for those that we would like to interview. And also to include the current board members say that they're still committed to being part of it. Everybody in accordance with that? Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, and everybody in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Danny. 3D, discuss and consider the approval of an ordinance granting a variance to chapter 17, section 17.07.003 of the City of Bulverde Code of Ordinances related to riparian buffer conservation on 5.01 acres at 766 Banfield Pass Avenue, Bulverde, Texas 78163, for the construction of a proposed residential driveway within a riparian buffer.
Mayor and council, this lot, as you can see on the screen here, represents what was almost certainly an oversight during the plating process. In this case, you see that there is a drainage easement and riparian buffer across the entire frontage of this property. And there is no way to connect the property with the road without encroaching on the barrier, on the buffer. Traditionally, the designer of the subdivision should have caught that and designed the lot with a separate access. Barring that, although it's not legally a technical requirement to create, and it's not illegal to create a lot with no access, staff would have ideally caught that and brought it to their attention, but it appears that did not happen. And so residential driveways are not one of the items that are allowed by right through a riparian buffer. So the applicant's only alternative here is to seek a variance from the city council. I'll be happy to take any questions that you might have, or if the applicant has anything to add. I'll yield the floor to that.
My question on this is, where we're proposing the driveway to go down that side, is it better that it would have gone straight and along the property line on this side, but I see down there's a culvert at the end. So I don't know if that would work.
There's a culvert right there at the corner of the lot, and that would probably impact
Driveway.
and the culvert flow.
Is the applicant or the engineer or developer?
Yes, sir.
Hello, Council. Dustin DeWinnie, civil engineer for the project, and then Shane Jackson, property owner here. Happy to answer this one.
Is this in your opinion, is this the most minimalistic impact?
Yes, sir. There's kind of a tree line. You can't really see with the shading, but there's a tree line that runs along the low point of the property where that culvert currently sits. This is kind of an open green space area where we're proposing it. From a topography standpoint, it starts getting steeper as you get to the plan west or plan east towards that current culvert crossing is. So yes, sir, this was kind of optimized location, giving enough room to not encroach into that tree space area, which part of that variance, we're not proposing to remove any trees from that buffer area, we're just creating an alignment for the driveway.
So are we losing any trees on this by having it go this way?
No, ma'am. There's already an existing the field right there. You can kind of see there's already an open field, and there's already an existing crossing that goes through the creek bed area. So there's no trees being proposed to be removed with this layout.
Wait, hold on just a second. And Amy, did you say this was did you say that this was an error when they agreed to this originally?
When the developer originally planned it, they should have realized that the entire frontage of the lot was contained in a non-encroachment. And staff tries to catch these things, but they didn't do this. Ideally, they would have come through and got the variance at the time the plan was approved with the authorization, if they couldn't redesign the line.
Right.
So let me ask you this, Danny, do we end up in a possible, I know it's the tributary of Cibolo Creek, does that property flood?
Generally speaking, that riparian buffer is an area that's subjected to flooding. I don't think this is an actual floodplain.
Correct.
But let me put it.
Well, yeah, it wouldn't have.
Where are we putting the structure?
Well, if we go back to
So to the top in this bottom part.
It's right at the edge.
Yeah, the house itself is right over on the other side of the water. Well, I don't think that's 100% settled yet. That's more building permit when it's finalized, will show that it won't be in that buffer.
So
The house won't be inside the shade area.
the driveway,
Yes.
that's awfully close there.
It is, but you're allowed to build up to the edge.
That's the edge of it.
It's not into it. It's 60 feet off the center line of the creek, so it's a pretty healthy distance.
Councilman Hayes.
You're living dangerously.
Yeah.
That's my
That's
only
a
thing.
tight
Because, you know, it may not officially be listed as a floodplain. It wouldn't have been given formal tributary status if it wasn't. So, I think in a situation right now, you're kind of stuck. You know, you don't really have other access points. Your engineer is showing that this is the best way to go through, the least impact, but yeah, it could get hairy on you.
Councilman Alexander.
What's the length of the, I guess, how far that goes through the repairing? You know, you're showing the where it crosses, you don't show the length on that, I guess, so I guess if there's like a section, you know, are we going down the creek, following the contours of the creek or the repairing buffer, then
So-
back up?
So there's not really a creek per se identified. There is a line that's produced, and going back to pre-development conditions before the prior engineer designed the subdivision, this drainage easement was put in place because the watershed contributing to it flares out outside of that culvert that crosses under, was it Bainesville Pass? And basically, per the city's code, they've got to control that water surface elevation within an easement, and that's what's being established here. I don't have linear footage. I put square footage, 6,800 square foot total, basically being impacted. The intent here is to just match grade and put a driveway. We're looking at like a chip seal driveway, basically matching grade where we're not causing an issue where he's going to have to go in and repair it every time we get a large rain through there. But as you can kind of tell, and these are LiDAR contours, so they're not in the field verified, but you can see it kind of fans out as it crosses through that open field area. Now there is a small where the culvert's being placed was the original flow line for this area before development, and that's now been cut off by the way the road has been established there. But we did size this culvert crossing to handle, I believe it's like a 2-acre watershed that kind of goes to the corner. This connects to another road just east of this lot that's adjacent to us. So we did calculate that to handle any flows to not impede typical flows through that load that goes under the driveway where that culvert's being proposed.
Okay, yeah, so you hit on a couple of things there. So you're saying that culvert is not gonna go there?
It is gonna go, so if you follow, and I apologize, the shading kind of overlays it a little bit, but if you follow the contours, which when contours are starting getting tight to each other, that's when you're gonna have kind of a steeper slope area. There is a small seasonal dry, Shane, y'all had the property for a little while. Have you seen, a flow through that?
We've owned the property since the July 4th floods this past year, and there was never water in it at any time.
So it is a dry creek under large rain events. You could get watershed coming through it and then going through that route, but the way the subdivision was designed, it basically pushed everything out and it fans out across this, and the adjacent property is also part of that buffer area. It's not shown on this exhibit, but I believe I included the plat in the middle, but the adjacent property basically is almost entirely encompassed by that as well, but they did leave a section up front for them to build on, to the west of the site.
All right, and then the other part that you hit on was that it's gonna follow the contours that you're skipping a culvert there, so you gotta either go above the culvert or at some point, so I'm not understanding what you're saying there in those two.
Okay, so in the low point, there will be a culvert there. So there'll be a culvert that'll maintain the 100-year flows through that creek bed. we'll have to build that up with a, like a concrete riprap structure to have basically protect that culvert. So the grade will change within that cross-section area, but once we get out of that low point, 'cause it's not really, you couldn't get a passenger car through there right now the way that it's designed. I mean, you bottom out going through that. So we would raise it up just enough to get the culvert, 24-inch culvert being proposed, get the culvert, get the cover on top of that, and then have the ability to drive across it. But once we get outside of that low point area, it's just gonna match existing grade with a chip seal type driveway.
So the driveway is 24 inches above grade?
The driveway, the culvert that we're proposing for that crossing is a 24-inch diameter culvert. So by the time you have a culvert and base on top of it, I mean, you're probably in the 30-inch height at that point. But just that's gonna be the most impacted area where we have that culvert, because we've got to be able to get that culvert through there to handle the water and then be able to cross over it. So there is grade change happening within that section, but the intent of this design was to follow natural grade up to that point, build, kind of like a low water crossing with a pipe in it, and then basically go back to grade and then get them access to the house site.
So my question is, which way does the water run? Does it run towards this property or towards the other property?
So if you look on that exhibit, along the road, there's a little black spotted hatch area. So it comes down and it goes.
Right, so it's gonna run from the culvert. So we're gonna run.
You can correct me if I'm wrong, but the water is gonna generally flow.
This way.
Yes, correct, yes, south and west.
To help I know some were pointing at that blue line on the far right. The tree line, you can see it's in the bottom left-hand corner of the property is where that tree line is. So it is offset from the house by significant.
Yeah, this is kind of the water flow right here,
Right,
and this is the channel, or this is the distance we require to establish from that channel. So this is not like a floodplain map where you would expect water to be here. This is you've got to stay 6 feet away from this line over here.
Yeah.
There's a significant grade change here, right?
Yes, sir.
And I mean, I realize that, but my concern is you damming anything there to potentially end up rain, uphill, right? Obviously with the culvert. So that's why I asked if it's an asphalt, that just goes across and that water's come across. But now you put a culvert that could potentially block something, right? Like debris or whatever. In the event we have a rain event, which then would lead me to, what type of drainage analysis do we do? Tier 1, tier 2? What type of drainage analysis did this trigger?
So for a residential project, there's not a drainage analysis required, but I did provide a generalized statement, a signed and sealed justification letter as part of this, basically pointing out those key points. Proposed driveway and culvert crossing are designed to maintain the drainage patterns across the site and through the riparian buffer. The culvert has been sized to convey existing upstream runoff and pass the anticipated flow without increasing upstream ponding or downstream erosion, and no habitable structures are proposed within the buffer area. Single-family residence will be located entirely outside of the buffer limits, and then disturbance within this riparian buffer is limited. We're limiting it to the minimum area necessary to provide a residential driveway crossing. So there's a lot of effort and cost to a residential client to go through a full drainage study for something like this from a variance perspective, but we did analyze the watershed that contributes to that crossing point and size that to accommodate a 100-year storm event. Now, I did pull the original report, and I don't know if this would, but this is from Jones and Carter did this originally, but this is the client's property here, and that buffer actually fans out. This is the adjacent property to the west, fans out pretty significantly. So I mean, I don't know off the top of my head, but 1,000 foot maybe of area that typical runoff, which again starts at a culvert crossing here and then would fan out across there. So again, our intent is to minimize the cost and the implications to any of that buffer area.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, to me, my concern would be, how we arrived at at that size culvert, right? Without a drainage analysis.
Yes, sir. And like I said, I have the backup information for that. I didn't provide it as a formal drainage report, but we did calculate that to do that. I don't know that the city requires that per se, but
Not for variance. On a residential project, depending on the impervious cover of the entire site, you're either gonna end up with tier 1 or tier 2. It's most likely it's gonna be tier 1, which is extremely minimal and doesn't require house.
So
Okay.
I guess at this point, for the variance, could we require a justification? I know you're attesting to it here, basically by sealing, going with this document. But I don't know if most council. I mean, I'm worried about neighbors. I'm worried about you being in that house too. In the event we get a huge rain event, and then we had a problem there. But I don't know if we could do some type of drainage analysis to justify that culvert side. What we're looking at, it may not be as bad as we think, right? But I don't know without drainage analysis.
Okay, yes, sir. Yeah, and that's from, and obviously by signing something like that, I'm taking the design liability of this project. You're not seeing the documentation behind it and having to forward it on to the third party engineer to review it back and forth and go through that process, which obviously adds time and cost. But I did do that. Obviously, you're just taking my word for it, but I did analyze that cost to accommodate that. So, that's kind of that's what the intent of that letter, which that letter is not normally required in this instance, but I kind of assumed that would be a question. So that's why we included that in there.
No, I appreciate that. And you're right. I mean, and I'm just trying to make sense of it that's fair to the homeowner because he didn't know about it and we didn't catch it. And then, that we don't, hurt anything upstream.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
I just want you to say, because we haven't had severe rain events in a long time, people forget how bad.
Okay, so, I have a couple of questions, all
I
right?
have a couple of questions.
And we're gonna go down here and, so knowing that 3 acres of this is in a riparian buffer, okay? Obviously when we buy properties, we know that, right? They're in the riparian buffer. It is as much the owner's responsibility as it is the city's responsibility to catch those items, right? However, I will tell you that I have one of these culverts and live in that area. And my house flooded, which is not even in a floodplain, not even close to anywhere on July 5th, right? I had water inside my house. The way this water flows, you will have water in that house at some point, right? And that concerns me. That concerns me a lot. And we continue to put people's houses in places that should not be there, riparian buffers and in floodplains. And this concerns me. I understand the situation that we're in, but I want that to be said. Right? Councilman Hawkins.
I'm familiar with this property. I used to drive for the PD. I spent a lot of time going through Centennial Ridge. And I looked at this property frequently as I would drive by. It's a challenging property to build on. But I don't see anything that he's done here that is going to create a problem. In other words, it's a challenging piece to build on. If he had the right to buy the property, if he goes into it full well knowing what he's dealing with, which you need to know that, what you're dealing with. Out here, the water changes the dynamics of a lot of things, and the water also moves your house for a period of time. It's moved mine. So going into that, knowing what you're knowing, it's probably the best you're going to be able to do on this.
Councilman Hawkins.
I have a couple questions. I'm looking at the plat that was included in the package, and then this item that's here. Lot 23A is what's marked here. Lot 23 is what's marked on the item in the packet. Has this been replatted?
It should be lot 24 on the exhibit in 24. And
This says 23A next to the, I'm sorry, the property to, I can't tell
so
what
those would be the adjacent properties. So,
Understood, but on this map, it's of this plat, it says 23A. On the plat in the package, it says 23. Is there an interim plat that we're missing?
it looks like the adjacent property did go through an amending plat. I don't have record of that with me, but it looks like the city did approve in 2023 a amending plat for the westernly adjacent.
Danny, do we have any information about what's anticipated on that lot? Because that lot, I think, if I'm looking at this correctly, is nearly completely in the riparian buffer.
That lot was combined with another one to double its size. So it'll have one house where there would have been two under the original plan.
So they maybe did that
They probably did that
to get away.
more land and then a buildable site on the next lot.
Understood. Okay, so,
Right, you said it was more towards the entrance.
yeah.
Yeah.
So then the other question I had, and I hear what you're saying about the culvert. I have less of a concern frankly about the culvert and more of a concern about how you're gonna handle stormwater erosion, all of that stuff. The disturbance to the riparian buffer during construction is likely to be significant, yes?
So the intent would be to establish the driveway, so we would, and again, we're trying to basically, the site's generally graded flat through that, outside of that, that low point where the culvert is. So basically, at the entrance, we would have the standard, Wolverine concrete apron, so there would be a concrete apron driveway at the right of way. And then from there, they would put base down to establish the new driveway.
But just doing the work is gonna involve some disturbance.
Yes, but absolutely. I mean, anytime you move dirt, there's opportunity for
Sure.
dirt to move on.
So, Danny, refresh my memory. All right, I believe that disturbance to a riparian buffer then has to be repaired or restored. There's some.
So part of this variance, they're gonna have to limit their disturbance to the driveway.
So anything outside of that is gonna have to be restored.
It shouldn't be touched. They're basically gonna have to transport everything along this corridor into the work.
So as a practical matter, how do we monitor that? How do we?
But we'll periodically visit the site during the building process, and if we see tons of bulldozer tracks outside of this area in
Sure.
or material storage or something that's not supposed to be in this area, it will be cited at that.
Sure, and to be clear, I'm not trying to be a jerk about this, right? Consistency of application, we've taken a pretty hard line about riparian buffers because they exist for a reason. I'm sympathetic. You've got a situation where you're gonna do your best to make the best that you can out of this lot. But I have real concerns about construction activity in the riparian buffer. And I don't know what the plan B is. My guess is you don't get out of this without disturbing stuff you're not supposed to disturb. And I just would like to know what our.
Well, I mean, the only improvements slated within there is the driveway.
Right,
So, they're gonna have to be very careful.
but realistically,
The concrete, but that's also a pretty steep slope, right? We're not gonna see a concrete truck on the left-hand side of the house there. Because I don't think it's level enough for one to get there. They're gonna have to come out to the outside blue area.
so if we approve the variance tonight, we're not approving any additional activity in the buffer.
No, this is a corridor. We're
Okay.
setting up a corridor, they've got to stay.
And then any damage to the buffer outside of that, we have, is an enforcement action. Okay. Thank you.
Councilman Cravens.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm gonna leave the house out of this, because the variance is for the private, not the house. The house doesn't matter. This is a platted subdivided lot, a residential lot. It was an oversight, but you need a driveway, so I don't see any way around that. And in regards to riparian buffer conservation, they'll have to follow our ordinance. You said it's concrete riprap on the sides and it's asphalt on the drive, or?
So it would be an asphalt or chip seal, which is essentially an asphalt for the driveway. And then when we have the crossing in the low point, I don't think I have any pictures of it, but actually I have one that we were looking at when we were discussing it. I can present it to you in just a second. This maybe kind of projects what would be proposed at the low water, at the low point. So there'd be pipe. This is multiple pipes, but we would be proposing pipe, and then this is a situation where if the water does for some reason get above, it doesn't go through the pipe.
It wouldn't be that high.
It wouldn't be that well. It would be at the section over the pipe. This is a little higher. These are only 12 inch pipes. We're proposing a 24, so you would have some more height. But and I don't know that I have pictures of it. I could probably on the computer, but
Well, I'm concerned frankly about us taking this into consideration without it being part of the public record, so I don't know how we include that.
I
in
mean,
the
that's being
material.
with the 24-inch over concrete curb.
Right,
Is it standard nomenclature, I guess, for that type of?
right, and it's sized for a 100-year flood, and you can't make it go above 100-year flood, so.
Yeah, there's not a regulatory floodplain here.
And there's not anyone, there's actually not a floodplain within the map area, which this floodplain.
Right.
Pretty near the top of the watershed here.
Yes, yeah, I think,
Right.
well, the area between, Vanderbilt Pass and the next road is basically we're collecting that watershed, which these are large acre tracts, so you're not adding a whole bunch of impervious cover with most of the residences on there.
Oh, it's about 6,500, 6,600 square feet
Yes, sir, I think 6,700,
on a 5-acre lot, so.
And that's for the driveway,
So-
obviously the house, is on there, but the house is outside of the buffer area, so that.
Yeah, it seems like, you know, it's minimally invasive how you have it laid out, and I mean, it's a platted lot, I mean, you have to have a driveway, there's no other way to get your house, so.
Councilman Hayes,
I don't think there's any other way. We're ready for a motion.
Council Alexander.
Yeah, I mean, there's not any other way. I mean, I've got my concern on the drainage analysis, just to make sure that's a belt and suspenders here, you know, that we've got everything captured. That's my 2 cents concern on that.
Councilman Hawkins. Councilman Watts.
I'm a yes, provided we understand that you're threading a pretty fine needle. And any other damage to the riparian buffer is gonna be an enforcement action.
I'm ready for a motion.
I'm concerned. All right, somebody want to make a motion on this?
I'll move to approve an ordinance granting a variance to chapter 17, section 17, decimal 07, decimal 003 of the city of Liberty for the ordinance that's related to the riparian buffer conservation on 5.01 acres at 766 Canfield Pass Avenue, Liberty, Texas 78163 for the construction of a proposed residential driveway within a riparian buffer.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Monday.
Just know if that water comes up, we can't get to it. Where do you,
The still houses.
Okay.
All right, I think that goes the other.
Thank you.
Okay, 3E, consider the approval of an ordinance granting a request by Nuruddin Halam, with Killen Griffin and Fairmont PLLC on behalf of Gloria Deo Academy for a change in zoning from PD Plan Development District with a base zoning of C1 Commercial District to C1 Commercial District at 1110 Bulverde Road for approximately 6.0 acres of land located on the west side of Bulverde Road near the intersection of Bulverde Road and John Charles Road.
All right, Mayor and Council, this site was originally zoned C1, back in 2018. I think I might be off by year. In 2018, the city still had, exterior architectural finish standards in our zoning ordinance at that time. The Gloria Deo Academy, which was built on this site, wanted to seek a special authorization to build for 2 primary reasons. One, they wanted to build the gym. It's probably not a gym. The
pavilion.
The pavilion would be converted to a gym at some point in the future, and we had a general prohibition about building accessory structures without primaries. And they also wanted to have some relaxation of our commercial exterior finish standard. So they came in and presented this item. Council approved it. Subsequent to that, the legislature repealed our authority to regulate exterior finish standards. So those are that part of the ordinance is no longer valid. Subsequent to that, they have built some classrooms on this site, which is a primary use. So they no longer need an authorization for the pavilion separate and apart from the primary use because it's already there. So, the PDD effectively doesn't serve any purpose anymore. The applicants had a choice between amending the PDD because they do want to change some of the footprints and of the buildings and the arrangement of them, or just reverting the site back to C1, which is space zone C1 now. The use has always been allowed in C1. It was just those two items that pushed us towards the PDD back in the day. So they've chosen to pursue a general zoning change to roll back the zoning to C1. The applicants, I believe, have a presentation, and I'll yield to them for that at this time.
Mayor, council members, thank you for hearing our request tonight. My name is Jim Dressler. I'm at the School of Gloriadale Academy. The school's been there for 13 years. We have 262 students, represent about 100 families here tonight, which is really cool. About a third of those come from the Spring Branch, Bulverde area. We're very grateful to serve our community. Thank you for hearing our request, and we look forward to partnering with the city as we continue to grow. Meriden is going to come and share our presentation, but thank you again. Good evening, council. My name is Nudi King Kalam. I'm from Fairmont here, and we represent Gloriadale request to rezone the subject property. Mr. Betts did a great job introducing the rezoning request and kind of providing the background, so I'll be very brief in my presentation, kind of go through a couple of slides, and then we're available to answer any questions that you have. So again, brief introduction to the property. It's about a mile south of Highway 46 on the west side of Bulverde Road. As you'll see, it's part of a larger area that was annexed into the property and then zoned C1 upon annexation. The subject property was 6 acres when purchased, and then subsequently reduced acreage as part of the dedication of the right-of-way when the property was platted. This is the slide I really wanted to focus on in terms of the change of conditions, right? The school has grown, the enrollment has grown, but also the size of the school has grown, and the remainder of the portion of the property is zoned C1, and the intent of reverting back to the C1 based zoning is to plat, permit, and develop the property all under the city's existing C1 regulations. So all existing city ordinances and regulations would apply to the development of this property under the C1 zoning district if approved. I want to lay out conceptually about how the property now looks, that it's grown since the original zoning. The original 6 acres was purchased. And this is a conceptual design, but it shows the flexibility that the school would have to develop their property in a master planned organic way to one, meet the needs of the students, but to do so in a nice manner and not piecemeal between multiple zoning districts. Again, wanted to keep my presentation very short, so we're available to answer any questions. And again, this is just for the 5.635 acres, not the entire 20 acres. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Hayward.
Out of that, go back to the presentation. Bottom, the campus vision. One more. So is this up to date? What's your? You currently have the big awning there on Bulverde Road. Where's that shown in this picture?
It's the large yellow
Performance. Okay. Oh, the performance
center. Yeah, that's hard for me to read.
Yeah.
And again, this hasn't been submitted to the city for site plan review, but any building that's submitted for permitting would require
Right. Yeah, like Danny said, we've lost our ability as a city to enforce architecture and design standards. So I think, matching this property with the rest of the C1 that they already own, I think that's fine. Fine with me. So.
Councilman Watts.
Danny, I think you have answered most of the questions I came in with. I just want to be clear that we are not authorizing this addition tonight as part of this.
No,
right?
they would have to come in for building permits and replat these 3 parcels. This is just
probably
very concept.
Okay. So the only thing before us tonight is to just say
that 1 5-acre portion of this site is PDD with C1, we'll just go back to C1.
Okay, I don't have any other questions.
Councilman Hawkins,
I'm fine with this.
Councilman Hayes,
I don't have any conflict.
Councilman Alexander.
Yeah, I don't see any, I mean, I see what they're trying to do, so it makes sense.
I have a couple of questions. Number one, so how are y'all related to the church? Because I don't see that property here.
We rent land from the church that we have our modulars on, that we currently have classrooms in. Other than that, it's just a more symbiotic relationship, but, as far as an affiliation, direct affiliation, there's none.
So they're parking, you're parking, where is it located?
That is true. We have a parking agreement with them, a long-term parking agreement with them.
So what should happen if that parking was to go away?
That's why we purchased out of the land as well, that eventually if we needed to.
Yeah, I just don't see it here.
That parking, this shows our entire land,
Mhm.
not the 5. This is all 22 acres that you're looking at right there. So there's parking, you can see that little green building down at the bottom, and that can be build house, basically, there's parking there. As well as up top, there's some parking around that existing yellow building, and then also in the bottom or the far left side of your screen, around those trees down there, there's parking.
I think that's irrelevant.
So, okay,
And again, none of that's been approved, but it's just conceptual.
so you are no party with the church, right? You're not related to the church
Correct.
in any way, shape, or form. And share no properties other than what you,
The parking agreement.
just parking.
Well, and we rent land that our modulars are on. We rent that land from the city, or from Riverside.
Questions? You have any questions on this? Your motion.
I move that we approve an ordinance granting the request by Nuruddin Kalam with Killen, Griffin, and Fairman PLLC on behalf of Gloria Deo Academy for a change in zoning from PD Plant Development District with a base zoning of C1 Commercial District to C1 Commercial District at 1110 Bulverde Road for approximately 6.0 acres of land located on the west side of Bulverde Road near the intersection of Bulverde Road and John Charles Road.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Hogwarts. On the 1, 2.
Rhea. Discuss and consider an ordinance of the city of Bulverde, Texas, approving a special use permit at 29768 Bulverde Lane, Bulverde, Texas 78163. Permit the operation of an exterior training area and defensive infield, amending the zoning ordinance, directing the amendment of the zoning map, repealing conflicting ordinances, and providing a severability clause and an effective date.
Okay. Mayor, members of council, you may remember this site from last year. They obtained an SUP for indoor batting cage operations in the existing building there, the old GeoSource property. They're now seeking authorization to put in an outdoor training facility. They are not asking for, they're restricting these activities to ground hit type activities, not hitting the ball in the air. They've also proposed a screening fence or netting around it just in case a ball might try to leave the property. This item was considered at the Planning and Zoning Commission last meeting. The commission recommended against approval. The opposition primarily centered on the dirt infield and what would happen to that if it was carried away by floodwaters onto the neighboring property. And there were also we received 3 comments in opposition, letters in opposition to this. And with that, I believe the applicant has, you want to go ahead and give us your background and your proposal?
Good evening. I am Kendall Lee Smith. I'm the husband of the person who runs the facility and her co-owner, Jill Baranco. So I met with y'all a little over a year ago for the same purpose. A little bit different scenario, but we did the indoor batting cages. As we talked then, and where we are now, I'll give you a little bit of background. So Texas 96 is the select softball organization that uses the facility. It is a indoor hitting facility with 3 lanes. When we came to y'all before, we gave you the background of Bulverde Little League, where it's at, what it's doing. Bulverde Little League currently has 130 teams and over 1,600 kids playing in it. And so they utilize every field in Comal area pretty much every night of the week during this time of year. And so they have significantly limited our ability the girls' ability to practice. Most of these girls do play Little League. I say most of them, about 99% of them do play the local Little League. They are local girls from this area and from this community. So they all go to school out here, live out here, their families work out here. So as part of this, that area that is shown was actually a laydown yard for a construction company in a contractor yard for many years now. That contractor has moved out or is still in the process of moving out. And as we got word that this was happening, knowing where we were, we asked the landowner if we could potentially lease the remainder of the property to use it. So what we have proposed there and what we actually stated when we did this before was that we would potentially be seeking extra if that came available. And so what we have is, as stated, Mr. Ratz clarified, is that it is a defensive infield. We're not doing any live hitting out there. It's not even big enough to do full live hitting on. We are proposing an infield. Unfortunately, I'm not as good as the last guy, so I can't make cool exhibits with this. My engineering background just left a little bit of time ago. So what I have is just an AI that shows the dirt infield. Everything to the left side of the page is already a grass area. The back area that we're showing is it's offset from the fence. We did, as part of the last discussion, it was asked that somebody protested concerning that balls were going to hit airplanes. And one, none of our balls can hit that hard, but 2, we put protective netting up, not because we're hitting out there, they're hitting inside. It's more for inherent throw. So these girls are throwing from bases back towards first base and back towards the home plate. So we proposed a protective netting just to we don't want girls chasing balls into the air park, and so that's what we proposed there. So this is what we had. As stated, we did have some protests. We met with several of the people protesting, and believe that we've been able to work through a lot of our differences associated with the protests. So,
okay. Councilman Hawkins. Oh, wait. Councilman Hawkins.
Looks like there's several problems that need to be solved here. As I read through this, I had a number of questions. I guess the first question that I had is, how in the world did this property get the right to ingress and egress on the private drive here?
That's a great question. It's been like that for a long time. Have no actual information on the date of how that occurred. But the airport owner is actually here, and we've coordinated with her on our traffic flow. So I'm happy to let her speak on that aspect of it. But what we've agreed to, and she can come up here and hit me if I'm wrong, is that we will work towards getting an independent driveway. We know that that takes time. We're trying to get a place for these girls to work right now. And so we are working on submitting for an independent driveway. And in the meantime, we were working on signage to go there for access. Our organization houses about 100 girls. I say ours. It's my wife and Jill. I'm speaking on behalf of them. There's about 100 girls. They had 2 teams there practicing tonight, hitting cages. There were 12 cars out there. So it varies though. I mean, there's times that there's a few more cars out there, but generally speaking, it's low flow, low traffic. It's at odd times of the day. Most of the time, there's no one there during normal operating hours. Those girls have school. So really the only two people that are there are Jill and Kendall, my wife. So the traffic flow is actually alternate or normal traffic flow. Most of the time they're coming in at that time. But we have worked with Roxanne to work on an agreement to navigate traffic flow and how we do that. So in stating that with 100 girls, 12 cars, we have the ability to control our people very well. And so, and they're all local here, so we're not trying to frustrate neighbors.
Well, yeah, 2 points there. The first, assuming that you were to expand into this, I'm assuming that there would be more people coming other than just using the cages. So there would probably be more traffic at that intersection. And the second point would be if Roxanne decides that you're no longer a persona non grata to use her drive in and out, what are you going to do? It basically shuts you down.
Which is why we're working on an independent driveway. So,
Yeah.
but as for the additional people that you're referring to, no, when you have 2 teams in there hitting, we have a large overflow of girls standing outside waiting to hit. What we're proposing is we have a team inside that's doing their hitting, and we have a team that's outside doing their defensive drills. So we're not trying to overload the site with a bunch of people. We only have 6 teams. So it's not like we just have an infinite amount of teams to throw in here and add to this, and they're all practicing on different nights of the week anyways. So we're limiting it to what we have, and we're just trying to utilize the maximum amount of the space that we have to give our girls opportunity to practice.
Okay. I noticed that there were several people that were opposed to this who had hangars in the airport. Danny, I didn't see that other people responded. Did you reach out to any of the other hangar owners to get somebody who might support you in this?
Well, I guess I can touch on this. They actually reached out to us. So in several of the cases. So Tommy Anderson, who's sitting here, who is y'all may know is very involved in the airport, reached out to me and said he'd like to sit down and talk through this. And I appreciate that. In good faith, we're trying to work with our neighbors and be good stewards of the relationship. A couple of their opposition points were related to the dirt. And one was drainage with the dirt. I'm happy to talk through that in more detail, but one was the dust associated with the dirt. So I gave him more information on what we're doing, how we're doing it. This is intended to be a field that, my wife and Jill are paying to install. They want to maintain it. We don't want our dirt going different places. So we actually, part of the discussion, had discussed the fact that we're proposing a buffer grass along the perimeter. We want that dirt to stay there. It's going to be maintained. We have teams practicing on it.
I know we'll discuss dirt at some point in time. Obviously, what I'm wondering right now is there anybody in the airport that actually supports this, and are they willing to support?
Hey, can I
Wait,
interject on that?
please wait.
I have really
Let
good
him finish.
information.
I understand, but let him finish. Write it down. And you
Are there people that are speaking up on your behalf that would be affected if you put this in here? In other words, do you have proponents or advocates at the airport, or is the airport against you in this endeavor?
These hangars are not notified. The ones in the picture, they're tenant, they're renters.
But as part of understanding, I don't manage how the P&Z notifies people, but y'all are to notify the property owner. I have no control over who.
That's correct.
And we sat down and met with both her and Tommy, who runs a hangar there, and they're now in support of us doing this. So the same 2 that protested it.
Okay, so you have some advocates.
Yes, and they're sitting here, and I believe they're willing to talk to it.
Good. Okay, that was my question.
Councilman Watson.
I have some concerns about parking and traffic and the dirt, all of the things that you've already mentioned. So people smarter than I will address that. I wanted to say a couple of things. First of all, I think it's very encouraging that the community members affected sat down and worked out a potential solution themselves. So hats off to you for listening. And I'm assuming that we'll know more about the solutions you're coming up with. But specifically with respect to parking and traffic, you start to have an outdoor situation. Are you going to have parents wanting to come and watch? Are you going to have bleachers? Is there suddenly going to be a lot more? I'm less concerned, frankly, about the airplanes, although I understand why people would be concerned about that, and more concerned with items on the runway that make it you know, turned into an engine. I don't know enough about it, except that I know that debris on runways is a significant issue. I know that in the past, there have been floods, dirt has been carried out onto the runway. There's been a cost to the airport owner and hangar owners to clean that up. At the end of the day, I'm not entirely clear what the city's responsibility is in that regard, but it's certainly a concern we have to take into consideration. So those are just some thoughts about this. I actually would really like to hear what Councilmember Krawitz has to say, because he's a renter on the, and has a perspective that I think would be valuable.
Yeah, I work at the airport, so yeah, this is a property that's unique to the operations of an airport, and I think I have a unique perspective on that, you know, being able to work at the airport that a lot of people in council don't get to experience. I mean, I'll just start off the bat. I know a little bit of history about the airport. This originally was an office for, I believe it was a lawyer. He was by himself. I think he even lived there for a little bit of time, but a very low traffic, low impact type of facility. And I think it was a handshake agreement with the original owner that he could use it drive. And so, you know, the use of the property's changed over time. The real problem with this, if you come out at a 45-degree angle to the private road at Bulverde Lane, and then you're also trying to look behind you at your blind spot, go out onto Bulverde Lane, is a horrible situation. And they need their own access on the Bulverde Lane. There's been multiple close calls at the airport. It is getting busier. I see I think we counted 26 cars there one night. It's busier. And then you're talking about, you know, it's popular. And I love seeing the girls out there. I think it's the best use of this property that's been at this property. You know, the previous thing was a concrete mixing silo that spread dust and concrete mix over the airport, which was damaging aircraft. And so that got removed. And then, you know, the yard here at the corner is a parking area for the truck. So very low impact there. And it's all crushed gravel, you know. So anyway, the use has changed on this property. And you're talking about, there's 1,500 kids, you said, in the Bulverde Little League, and it's growing day by day. And the defensive infield areas are just in such high demand. I see this being very successful, and I hope it is very successful. It's just the parking needs to be figured out, and the drive needs to be figured out. The other things, it's not just a floodplain, it's a floodway. This property, I mean, it's flooded 4 times in my life. I think 2015 was the last one where it was really bad. And there was more than 2 feet of standing water over this entire property. There used to be actually a propane tank somewhere on this property, and the propane tank floated on top of the water. And the only thing holding the propane tank on from rupturing the gas line was the electrical connections. And so and the water flow, you know, comes down Indian Creek here, and it's seeking the Cibolo. So Indian Creek's to the north of the picture, Cibolo's to the south. So you got a flow of water that comes like this from the property. And anything on this property, it washes into the airport. So I was at the P&Z meeting, talked about red dirt. The Bulverde Community Park is a known fact that there was red dirt at the community park when it was first built. There was a flood, and all that dirt got washed away. Dirt was placed back on the community park and got washed away again. And it ended up on the runway. I mean, you're talking the community park's like an L, is way up here in the corner, and it traveled that whole distance down to the runway. And so you have the specifications on the dirt. I'd like to hear what you're specifying on the dirt, because that's very critical to the operations of the airport and all your neighbors. You know, you just want to be a good neighbor. So, and there's probably $1 million worth of aircraft that border this property and hangar. What, you know, the water comes under the doors, and it comes up and it gets as high as the bottom of the cabin, and all the landing gear is underwater. You know, everything's covered in dirt. And so, and like Ted was saying, the people that are notified are only the property owners. And so to the south of this, there's like 3 hangars here that are owned by somebody. But this whole row up here to the right, that's all T hangar rental space. So you probably have, I don't know, 20 aircraft in there that weren't notified, the owners aren't notified.
Counted 15 or 16.
So there's a good amount of people that don't even know this is happening. And I fear, you know, approving the wrong type of substrate to be at this property with the city knowing that the red dirt floats off. I mean, you could potentially argue that could even open the city up to litigation because you're knowingly causing damage to somebody else's property. And so, what was the next thing? And then the netting, we talked a little bit about the netting. Well, for one, can you start with the dirt?
Sure. Does it continue or do I address it? Yeah. So just with the dirt. So one of the concerns was the red dirt.
Right.
So right now you have a caliche. I mean, we'll call it caliche. It's a caliche dirt base. I mean,
Right.
it's dust out there.
Real powdery.
It's very powdery, very light. I presented a picture to the P&Z of it was a semi-windy day and the dust was everywhere. Right now in its current state where construction traffic is driving over it and blowing it up. And so what we're proposing instead of that is caliche it's a form of clay that's been compacted over time and it hardens as rock. And so what we're proposing is a clay base, an under base on the field with a conditioned top coat that is it's still a clay mix, but it carries a silkier layer to it to allow it to bind better. If you know anything about fields and playing on fields, you want the right mixture, just like in professional baseball and college and little leagues, all of them, they want the right mixture for safety of the kids.
Sure.
So you want it to be compacted and set in
Sure.
space.
Yeah.
And we also, I appreciate the park had dirt out there, but they probably didn't have people out there watering it every day, taking care of it and maintaining it to make it a safe, playable condition for their kids, not because of any reason other than it's an accessory for y'all.
The red dirt floats.
Yeah, and so what we're proposing is that as an underlayment because we have to have a solid surface underneath it, and then we're proposing, and you want it to be compacted. And so then on top of that, we have a layer of 3 inches of a top surface layer that is a clay. We're proposing it's a round mix. So Site One Aggregates has offered us a different mix for it, which I have the information on. But it's a dirt, and in that they provide a silt binder. So, and then we actually, as part of that, and as part of our work with them, there's conditioners that you add to it because you want it to. Again, we want it to drain in a rain event, just a basic rain event. We want it to drain so that we can use it, and so that the girls can play on it. So you add conditioners to it. In the same way, you don't want it to just go up as dust all the time, and so that conditioner acts as a binder, which holds in a little bit of moisture to keep it down, and then you have to maintain it. And as an organization who's paying for it and who has girls on it regularly year round, we're going to be maintaining it.
Sure, I completely understand that. Do you know how granular the substrate you're going to be using is? Is it a fine red dirt dust
on the
sand?
Well, it's so the standard for fields. It's a 60. It's about a 60-30 mix. So it's 60% clay, and then you have a silt layer.
Right.
And so
that's what we put at the park. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And so the concern was associated with really the red aspect of it. And then the fact that when you have a park that didn't get maintained, didn't have conditioner on it, you're not watering it, you're not taking care of it.
Well, red dirt, I've just seen it when the water hits it. We're not talking about a rain event.
Sure. Yeah.
Event.
So I guess
runoff and drainage.
Can I address that in a more direct answer? Most baseball and softball fields are actually placed in floodplains. They're placed there because that's an easy place for parks and recreation areas. McAllister Park is located in a floodplain. There's a large portion of it in floodplain. McAllister Park has, I think, 16 fields out there, all dirt. So yes, it is a risk of dirt flowing away, but It's located on our site, the site that we're on. The slope of the site is essentially 0.2%. That is relatively flat over the site. So it's not a situation that is giving, you're calling it a floodway. I hear that. Floodways are defined based on their distance away from the actual creek line. I am a civil engineer licensed in the state of Texas in waterways, so I can touch on a lot of that with a lot of detail if y'all like.
Right.
Let's move
But
on.
so a lot of these, infield areas that are placed in floodplains, a lot of them use decomposed granite because it's more granular and it interlocks, and then they put a binder over it and it's more flood resistant.
Well, the decomposed granite is actually your conditioner. So that's it's a very fine gravel mix that you mix in with it because it holds moisture around it and keeps the moisture there. But it also allows
you're saying it's going to be a clay red dirt sublayer with a decomposed granite top layer.
It's a conditioner, so it's got decomposed granite in it, but it's got a mixture of silt in it as well. So you want that. You don't want just decomposed granite because it's very slick. It's the same thing that McAllister Park has. Every other field has.
Well, you use a binder.
Yeah. Correct, and that's what we're proposing.
Move on to Councilman Hayes.
Well, I got one more thing about that.
Yeah.
Councilman Hayes.
I'll defer my
Well, I'm happy to address that.
A P&Z, I've heard the community speak, people at the airport about the net going all the way to the ground. Did you reach a compromise with the people at the airport, or?
We did. We offered up a compromise in the request of it. So again, I think it was actually proposed during the meeting that they didn't want the netting in the P&Z from the protest, that they'd rather not have the netting because it would potentially catch the water. We, on the other hand, would prefer to have the netting because we just don't want errant ball. We don't want girls chasing balls, and we want to protect our property the same way. So what we suggested was there is a current fence around the property. It's a 2x4, essentially hog wire mesh fence with chicken wire on the face of it, all pretty much the whole length of it. We're proposing to not touch that. We're proposing to put our fence. We're actually already proposing our fence to go inside that, but we're proposing to set it at that. It's currently set at about 4.5 feet. We're proposing to set our fence at 4.5 and then carry it up.
Yeah, I think that's fine. There needs to be a fence.
Yeah. So our one change to that is that because we propose it to be a 20-foot high fence off the ground, we would actually try to make it a 15-foot high fence from that point up. So it essentially
it'd be 5 feet off the ground.
It'd be 4.5 feet off the ground and then 15 feet tall. So you still get the 20-foot height.
Right, it's the same height. It's just offset from the ground.
Yes, sir.
Which is good because when this property floods, there's a lot of debris in the water, and that fence, it's not much of a fence. It lays down, so the debris can travel over that fence. I think the last time it flooded, we were even walking over the fence. I mean, it was completely lateral or and so keeping the problem is the netting. There's a lot of tree on the perimeter. The netting, if it goes to the ground, is going to catch debris. It's 200-pound breaking strength, so it's strong netting when you consider the whole length. Then as the trees back up, and it's going to divert water in the corners and cause damage to the airport. But I think that's a good compromise. Having the net start higher off the ground, that way it allows that fence to lay over. So
I'll also add to that for just the purposes of stating it. We don't have any fuel tanks. We don't have any big equipment that would be out there that could wash away. So we're benefiting everyone in that sense.
Sure. Yeah, I've seen whole trees come down that thing.
Councilman Alexander.
Yeah, so try to make this quick, maybe not get stuck in the gravel too much, but so I support your idea. I mean, I think it's great for the kids and anything for the kids. Great idea. I've seen a lot of this starting to develop in other little cities around. So, but you've heard the comments, and I do have concerns with the occupancy use of traffic. I do think we're starting to get into a sports type assembly center, so that traffic is the amount of cars there. If it's 26 cars now, I mean you could probably double that. Is what my guess is, just my gut. But so I have concern with the parking, and here's why too, because we see a lot of metal buildings around town that convert to something bigger, and then there's nowhere to park. I mean, where they do gymnastics, a dance studio, you know, and it's starting to grow, like, you know, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it becomes a traffic nightmare, right? I mean, because it wasn't intended for that use. So I do have concerns with that. And as far as your gravel infill situation, I agree. I think it will wash out one day, but I think the solution is turf. I think you just do it all turf. I mean, most kids now are playing on turf. So, but I mean, that's just an option. I mean,
Well, yeah, can I actually touch on just the turf component of it? So I do hear that Wolverine Little League is all turf. I will say to that statement, most kids playing on turf is somewhat true. Most softball fields in the state of Texas are still dirt. There's not that many turf ones as it's alluded to, especially when you get into like most high schools in Texas have dirt fields. All of Comal SD are dirt fields. There's no turf. So yes, there is an opportunity for turf, but one of the downfalls of playing on turf, if you have played baseball or softball, is that it takes the ball completely different than dirt. And most of our girls play on dirt. You know, we're playing tournaments all weekend on dirt.
I agree. I mean, I think it's going to start catching up. I mean,
I think so. I just
a lot of turf.
And maybe we'll go to that at some point, but we're trying to actually prepare the girls for the play, and they're playing on dirt, so we want dirt.
So yeah, I think turf's the solution to me because it addresses the concerns of the airport. It probably save you money in the long run. That got all washed out too, depending on the info, but not getting into the weeds with it. But then the parking, I don't know how you address that because I do agree. I mean, parents are, you know, once you get that tunnel vision, I gotta go pick up my kid right now, and you know, you're not paying attention. I mean, that's just I'm getting out of the way, following traffic, and the traffic to me is a big one.
And I understand that. What I will say is we're not actually requesting any additional parking there, so we're not proposing to make this into some big complex. We're adding one infield that 9 girls can practice on, and we have 3 batting cages. We don't have 15 batting cages and 4 fields or anything like that. We have 2 places for them to practice, and it's 6 teams. So and there's a large parking area listed there. We're not even proposing to use. Really, we're proposing to use a third of it, which we submitted in the last application, and we're not increasing that.
Yeah, I like to, you know, see what those calcs are. I mean, just to see that's parking situated for that type of event venue. That we have an adequate parking.
I guess the only thing I could see is we have 0 parking issues right now, and been in service for a full year, and we're not proposing to change it. I understand the traffic concerns, but we've definitely worked through that with Roxanne and as the property owner, trying to mitigate that.
Now, I'll mention that if the SU is approved, there will be a building permit for both parking and traffic. But that doesn't happen at this stage.
Okay.
So I remember a year ago, we asked you if you were going to expand, and you said no.
Not correct.
And so I'm a little bit concerned that now we're looking at this, it would really affect those hangars down below when it floods through there. The water comes from across the park, comes across the street, and comes across there, right?
Yeah.
And there's not gonna be a way to stop it. Yeah, give me 1 second. And so I'm very concerned about the traffic, okay? You have 3 batting cages, plus you have a field for 9 girls. So now it's going to be those using the batting cages and those using the field. So it does increase your traffic through there. That road is not made for that there. And with all the traffic that we have coming from the park on events during the park, and or those that are traveling from over the Cibolo Creek to come to our town up and down that road has gotten very busy. There's a new restaurant going across the street there. It's already ready to open. And I do not feel that it is adequate for traffic to be coming in and out of that road. I am very, very concerned about that. There's going to be an accident there with that much traffic coming in and out of that area.
So just to clarify the statement, and I'm happy to go back, this meeting was recorded. We stated not at this time, because that was a concrete laydown for a construction company. So at that time, we did not have access to that location. And at that time, we had no understanding that was actually going to go away. So from our standpoint, we can only work with the best information we have. So we stated that not at this time do we have a plan to do that, and up till this point, we didn't.
Understand. All my concerns are more the traffic and the flooding that dirt will end up down
So
in the middle of people's airplanes and on the buildings that are further south. So that is my concern.
Has the airport owner signed up to speak?
Yes, I will get to
Okay.
that. All right, Mr. Kravitz?
Good evening. So, put the graphic back up. So, the parking area on the top, so on the bottom left, that's their lateral field, their spray field. So that's not an option for putting a driveway out there. So the only area to add a driveway would be on the top where from that yellow square, like on the bottom. So I don't know if that will meet the criteria of being too close to the other driveway. So that's an issue. So I don't know if that meets city standard. The equipment yard that's in there now is a grandfathered use. So that use is going away. So that the parking, so now you're changing uses, and so now you're allowing, that parking that they're talking about doesn't meet city standard. We have pavement standard. So anyway, so you would need to give them a variance, basically. I mean, I guess you did that last year, but anyways, my main concern is the red dirt. He talks about the grass and he's gonna maintain it and water it and keep it. Well, that's grass holds the dirt in place. Without grass, that red dirt just washes away. I was concerned about that when we built the community park. I fought against it. I was told that I don't know what I'm talking about. And I'm the only one in the room. I've been through every one of the floods. I've been actually on that side of the Indian Creek. In 98, I was in my hangar with water up to my knees when the lightning clapped and the lights go out. So that's a hell of a feeling when you're there by yourself and ready, pre-dawn and everything. But anyway, so now you have my protest picture. So the water comes from the water actually, from the Indian Creek is going to try to find the Cibolo, the next one. Well, yeah, so that one's good right there. Can you rotate it? I mean, we can look sideways. So the Indian Creek's on the bottom left corner, and the water tries to eventually make its way to the Cibolo. So you got the runway which pops up, but there's also a slope, and so the water flow, that big arrow that is pointing up to the top right, that B is that blue B, that's his fence. The water flow. So look, you got a water flow that's the channel, and along the front of the property, the water comes through there, and like I said, debris. So that fence was a concern. So it's like a funnel. So it's actually funneling. My hanger is the one that circled the Kravitz hanger. And so I got doors on the north side, so the metal doesn't go all the way to the bottom, because in a storm situation, a flood situation, you can't hold the water out. If you do, it will blow the wall in. So we actually have space under the door so water can fill up the hanger. So you're gonna run all of that water into my hanger full of dirt. You wanna continue my? So my main concern is that red dirt. So I'm glad that we have this recorded, like you said, because in the event there is another flood and all that red dirt washes into my hanger, it's on record here, and I can easily use this in court if I have a litigation, because I easily at any one point have over $1 million for the aircraft in my hangar alone. So anyways, so I'm glad to see that the fence, that was my argument. He said in the last time that the fence never fall over. It has a big metal frame in the corner made out of 6-inch drill stem. Well, that laid over, that was reset. So he wasn't there when it flooded last year. He was in the back to their septic field. That septic field is overloaded. The city never checked or verified. I know they turned it over to the county, but there's no mechanism. Their septic system is at capacity, and I have proof of that. But he's talking about building up on top is another 6 inches. If you look at the fence that's out there, there's already like 6 inches
higher inside the fence. They keep filling gravel, and now he's talking about putting more base in there, building a mound. So they're gonna put a pitcher's mound in there. You can put this big old mound of dirt right 50 feet from my door and my hangar. And so when the flood water comes over, so when you build something up, the top thing rubs off quickly. If it's level, water flows over it. So he's gonna build a big old mound of red dirt right at my front door to the hangar. That's my biggest concern. The traffic, he's talked about, he controls his people. So you would think after the P&Z meeting last time, he had talked to his people. He's saying that their practice is off of peak time. There's a lot of recreational flyers that only come out to the airport after they get off work. So he's wrong about the peak time. When I was leaving the airport tonight, I almost got T-boned in the side by a F-150. And the guy looks at me like this, like I did something wrong. So he's not talking to his people. So anyway, so it's my problem, main problem, the driveway and the red dirt. If they raise the fence, that, at least that's one constructive thing that they did. But let's see where. Yeah, so when we keep talking about stone, you don't use like riverbed rock on a field because it moves around. So he talks about caliche. Road base is made with crushed rock and caliche. So that's the thing that he's talking about, the binder, that's already there. That's why the road base doesn't wash away, because it has the rocks in the caliche. But anyway, so unless there's major change made, I can't support the project, even though I'd like to see a little other place.
Thank you, Mr. Kravitz. Mr. Anderson.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. My name is Thomas Anderson. I am the owner of Anderson Aviation at the Boulevardia Air Park. We own 13 aircraft. We operate airplanes all day long out there. 3 of my planes are in that hangar that's east to west adjacent to their property that y'all were kind of pointing to earlier. I did speak in protest at the special use permit at the P&Z meeting 2 weeks ago that they applied for. I have had a few weeks to talk with Kendall and kind of work through some things, talk with them, get together with Ms. Roxanne Markline, who's also the airport owner, to kind of discuss what's kind of being proposed here. The traffic is a problem. We all know that. For the time being, between me, Roxanne, and Ms. Cindy, who is the property's owner, we've discussed messaging to their people and our people at the flight school, because we do have a lot of traffic, and the traffic is very busy out here now between the city park and everything we have on Boulevardia Lane. They do need a separate entrance, but we know that takes time. So we've kind of proposed for the time being messaging our students, our renters, our pilots out there saying, hey, we have to use caution at this intersection right now. And I'll let Ms. Roxanne talk about it, but they're talking about putting up signage and stuff so that there's more awareness of what's going on out there. So we can mitigate the risk by ensuring our customers know to use caution at that intersection as we kind of move forward with things. I have spoken to Kendall regarding the red dirt. My concerns were the dust coming from it for our aircraft and getting red dust. He's assured me that they're going to be maintaining the property, making it look presentable, and maintaining that dirt so it has the conditioner on top. It is moisturized so that it's not just spreading dirt everywhere, because we do get dirt right now from the caliche that is there. The netting was a concern, but as we talked about, if the netting can be raised by 4.5, 5, 6 feet off the ground, it's not going to create that funnel for the debris that in a minute breaks over, sends all that debris downstream. So those were the biggest concerns that we kind of talked through and worked through. And I do appreciate your consideration tonight, talking through all this. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Roxanne?
You like that this extra minute?
Let's try.
Mayor, Council, I'm the owner of the Boulevardia Air Park. Councilman Hawkins, Madam Mayor, yes, it's traffic. It is a great concern. Mr. Kravitz, you were correct. That was a handshake between Otis Hibbler and the original owner of the airport. There is nothing formal about that property using the airport road. I am concerned about potential litigation against me if I allow that road to be used by others. We did get together. We have agreed that they will put in a private road, council permitting, I trust, and they will no longer use my road. Up until then, we will both put up signage to caution all of our people. I have also almost been hit by people zooming out of the softball property. It's a weird situation. We do have solutions hopefully in place, again, with council permitting. I would like to see them stay there. They are good people. I just want it to be safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lynn. Danny, question. So signage would be a problem there.
This is all on private property, and Bulverde Lane here is a county road facility, so they'll be
That's
getting
right.
authorization from the county for the placement of that. We won't necessarily have a role there.
How do y'all feel about watering a baseball field every day while we're in a drought?
I think that that's maybe outside our purview. I feel like they've, in good faith, had conversations amongst themselves to try to work things out. I'd be inclined to defer a decision on this until you come back with an updated package that reflects those agreements and addresses those concerns, so that we're not sort of on an ad hoc basis incorporating those into a motion tonight. That's my feeling about it.
And I'm concerned about the driveway. So, you know, we say yes to this and then they can't put that driveway in, and then Ms. Martin's in an issue, we're in an issue, and we've already approved this. So I would table this until we know, or put it to a later date until we know more about what can happen there. And also figure out what would be the answer to the road, because they would need county permission to have a driveway to go out on Bulverde Lane, correct? So that would be with the county, not even with the city. So at this time, I do not even feel right approving this because it's not us.
So to that point, this is my personal speaking only for myself, I would not want to make approval or denial of this contingent upon the county's action. What I would say is that I would be more interested if we could have sort of a formal understanding that the air park owner is okay with them using the drive until such time as they can, however that works. I don't think that has anything to do with us. I just feel like there's been so much discussion since the P&Z meeting. And again, to your credit that you've been working together to do this, I just feel like that's what should come before us for a vote. And I'd be reluctant to cobble that together tonight on the basis of this.
I don't think that an agreement with the airport to use that road is enough.
Yes, I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't stop the dangerous issues just because they said, it's okay, you can do it till you get it.
There has to be a traffic study about that new coming out on Bulverde Lane with all the new traffic that we have coming that way. And for safety purposes, I would feel just horrible if some mom and daughter got hit coming out of there. It would just break my heart. So I do not feel comfortable with this whatsoever in any way, shape, or form. I think there's too many missing pieces and parts to it. And I would rather see them come back at a later date with some of these questions and dotted I's and crossed T's, because it's not there today.
Well, I'll speak to that. Their spray field is down here to the south, so what's the road look like?
Yeah, their only option is right here, and that's too close to that. It would.
Well, they may be able to redesign the septic. I don't know. And the county's going to decide where they want that driveway, and then it'll be up to the property owner to make whatever changes on the parcel they have to make that happen. If they feel that one in the northeast corner, west corner is too close to the other one, then they won't be able to put one there.
Correct.
And it sounds like they're going to have to go through that process anyway, based on what we heard tonight, that the airport's already decided that needs to happen. And so they're going to have to go, whether we approve it, deny it, whatever, they're going to have to do that anyway. So
I'm not. Yeah.
But I'd be inclined to defer it as opposed to denying it outright.
No, absolutely. When they can bring it back with more information and cross all the I's, or cross all the T's and dot all the I's that we've had tonight. So
they're not charged again.
correct.
Exactly.
So let's,
Is the council disposed to give any direction on the dirt infield as well, since as much information as we can give them tonight before they come back?
Do we have any ordinances that speak to that?
So there will be a floodplain review of that.
hold up, we're trying to figure out where we're going with this, and then we'll give you the questions and answers to that.
So there will be a floodplain review of the proposed construction if this is approved when the building permit's applied for.
So that's a separate.
That's a separate process, and
So can we even address the issue of what kind of dirt they're using as part of the consideration of SUP?
You could prohibit it.
You could build it into the SUP. Be hard to do.
That makes things complicated, right? So.
Okay, so I would think, for this field part, because, let me read what this exactly says. For the field part, we don't even discuss the field part until we figure out what's gonna happen on the drive-in, because at that point, in our parking has to change there, correct, Danny?
It may not. We'll evaluate that as part of the building permit process, but they already have substantially more area. Like, they're not even close to using all of that area now. So I suspect that they have enough area for parking.
They could put lines in it.
Absolutely.
And we have a plan with lines on it that shows where those are for the previous one, but they could add more and probably accommodate it.
I'd feel more comfortable not making a decision upon any of this tonight.
Can I ask a hypothetical question? So hypothetically, we could approve the SUP and they could come back with then the building permit process and we could deny all of that because of.
Administratively, if they did something that violated the floodplain ordinance or the building code or one of the council doesn't have a role in that part of the process. But if they did something that with their proposal just couldn't square with one of our other ordinances, then it wouldn't move forward.
Or they'd have to come to us for variance, right? So the two things are potentially, I'm thinking specifically about the dirt and the floodplain issues, separate from the SUP, potentially.
Well, you get to decide what you want to be part of the SUP, since this use isn't allowed by right. If you feel that certain issues are sensitive and need to be decided now, you can. To protect the public.
My concern with providing specific direction about that, though, is what if there's something that we haven't thought of in this process?
Exactly, that's why I said, let's wait.
Right.
Yes, there's too many questions out there right now.
I just didn't, if there was some consensus on that, I don't want to get down the process, everybody go through a lot of trouble, come back and say, oh, by the way, we were never going to approve that.
I want to leave them the maximum flexibility to bring information that's relevant to us and not limit that. That's my opinion, speaking for myself.
Yeah, I got another question.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
There's no real mechanism really on their sizing of the septic system and their capacity, because that's a county OSF thing.
I mean, they can.
There's no way for us to check that.
They could change, theoretically, they could change the disposal method, which is extremely expensive, move towards a drip field and receive a 40% reduction in the area. But that would be between them and the county. If the county issues them a permit, we are not going to be able to override that.
Right, but the permit was for the office space that had like 110 from years.
We'll notify the county when we get the building permit and require them to either give us a letter from the county saying no change is necessary, or that they are necessary, in which case we'd require a revised permit from the county.
Okay, so the county comes out and verifies that, or the applicant sends that to the county?
I think all.
Just a second. Go ahead.
So I forgot the gist of the question. I'm sorry.
It's at the mercy of the applicant to bestow that information to the county, right?
The county will decide what they need, and if they want to take the applicant's word without additional information, I don't know that they always do that. They usually require a certified either sanitary or an engineer to sign off on that. but it's outside my purview.
I don't think the dirt is the issue, the type of dirt. I think we, get in the weeds if we're doing that. It's more importantly, the buildup of the dirt, to create this in the mounds.
What he stated, factually incorrect.
Oh, okay, wait, just wait.
Have you been there?
Just,
Let's
stay, stop. Order, let's go.
So that's all I have. The council can table with the instruction that the item not be brought back until the access has been settled and incorporated into the application, and leave it at that, if that's what you want to do.
But like Clint was saying, this is a defensive infield. It's for mechanics. It's like going to Top Golf. It's not a golf ring, but I work on my drive there.
Okay, so, just a minute, ma'am. I'm gonna make a motion that we do not make a decision on this tonight, and that we need more information, regarding, what's gonna happen with the driveway.
I mean, we should probably wait until that's settled. I mean, if you want, because the plans could change until it's permitted and built. That's the only time you're gonna know where it is, what it is.
Okay,
And if that's important for y'all to know that,
well, it is important.
you should wait till it's built. And it sounds like it's gonna have to be done anyway, because the airport's no longer.
Correct.
Can we apply for that process without this SUP?
I'm sorry?
Is their application for that access dependent on approval or it's
That
not?
happens outside of our
So,
project.
okay, so it's not dependent on approval of this. I would say that that's.
Let us help us
Sure.
decide on what they're.
Yes. I'm not in accordance with this, making a decision to approve it, this SUP tonight.
I'd like to see the access issues addressed. I'm really conflicted about the dirt. I'm really conflicted about the dirt situation because I think we do have to take into consideration those potential,
Yes. So I think that knowing what we know after living here 30 years and watching what's happened down there when the water comes across, and knowing where the dirt has ended up and who it's affected is a big issue. And it's something that we need to look at, for those that are downstream. And I don't even think at this point it's the matter of the dirt, it's just the dirt, right? And what's gonna happen.
Now they're building that up in the floodway.
Exactly. So I would say, I'm not even in approving this SUP.
So if we defer, and so let me speak to you. I hear you. There is nothing you can say tonight that's gonna change. That's information.
Sorry, order.
I would say that the motion then should be to defer a decision pending resolution of the access and additional information about the dirt and build out of that area of property. Is that
The elevation.
right? Is that accurate?
So we would say potentially that to table this item until such time as the access issues are resolved and incorporated into the application.
Yes, and I think also, do we also want to take a stab at requiring additional information about the?
I'd rather we ask for everything that we're looking for. So
I want to be careful though that we don't word it so that we limit them. I want to give them maximum flexibility to bring us new information, right?
Who's in favor of dirt here? I mean, let me ask that question. So I'm not in favor of it. I think it could be dangerous.
I'm not in favor of it.
I mean,
I've seen where it's.
So we got three. We're either for it or not. I mean, we're debating dirt right now in the infield. So
I don't know that we are though.
No, I don't think we are.
I'm not.
There is definitely a possibility that the third issue could be resolved. If they can find a way that can be covered up.
Yeah, I'm not in favor.
Tarps, there's a way, there are ways.
they're
Maybe-
yeah.
It doesn't make the tarp, the water goes underneath the tarp.
As a council, I don't think we're doing. I mean, if it's either it's going to flood, it's going to wash out. And that's the only thing that's gonna happen with dirt there, whether it's imported dirt or dirt that's placed there, now.
Do you wanna make a motion?
It's 2 feet of
rough
Do you wanna
water.
Do you wanna make a motion to what?
Well, we can make a motion to postpone this until we get more information on the drive-in and the infill. Another option for the infill. Is there another option for the infill? I mean, there is options. I mean, it's turf, or I don't know, something like you said, maybe you cover it, but it's gonna wash out with the flood.
This is what I'm saying, if we address that now, we limit their ability to bring back other alternatives to us, which is why I'm saying we wanna leave them as much flexibility to address the concerns that have been expressed. Anything that we put into that motion, that gets very specific, like turf, limits their ability to bring back other alternatives, that's what I'm saying.
I don't think it does,
Okay,
but I think
I don't think it does
we're gonna
either.
hold it. We're gonna hold it. We're gonna just postpone it. The driveway is a big one. I mean, I think that's a big one. Right. Correct. And then the turf, the field, the infill, bring in another option, right? And then we don't have to make that option right now, but you can bring it with the.
I have a really off question that hasn't even come up. What is the lighting for this?
The lighting would have to be compliant with our dark sky ordinance.
Yeah, so how is it, it's like,
That's a building code issue.
yeah, but still, it's part, you're gonna have to light up the field.
Yeah.
10 o'clock at night. So,
So lighting too. So we need the infill figured out. So I'd say we just postpone it.
so
Is that what?
if we make a motion that says defer decision on this until the issue of access and details about the field are addressed, is that sufficient?
So I'd recommend that we clarify what we mean by addressed to probably say installed on access.
Or at least designed and approved?
Designed and approved, we could do that too.
Yeah.
But those two things are not far apart in time, so. But either one is fine, and then that additional options are presented for the field, including the dirt and other options. to the
Elevations.
council. And if you want elevations, that's a more extensive.
Okay, I'm gonna take a stab at
okay,
this.
so what we're saying is that we are going to ask for them to bring more information for the field, correct? And for the entry and exit of the location.
I'll take a stab at this and then we can amend it if necessary. I make a motion that we postpone a decision on special use permit at 29768 Boulevardy Lane, Texas, regarding the operation of an exterior training area and defensive infield, pending receipt of the design and approval of ingress egress to the site and additional information regarding the infield area.
Additional options for the infield area.
Additional options.
Additional options.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Abstain.
One abstention. This item is done.
The agenda
We're
item.
moving on. The agenda is completed and closed. Sir, we're, thank you. All right, moving on. We are going to consider an ordinance of the City of Bulverde, Texas, amending Chapter 3 Building Regulations, City of Bulverde Code of Ordinance by amending Article 3.08.102, permitted sign structures and general regulations to establish and delineate the requirements for attached signs on single tenant, multi-tenant, and multi-story buildings.
Mayor and members of council, this is part of our continuing update to our continuing project to modernize and update the sign code. Tonight's amendment is a very minor administrative fix. We're trying to fix the bones of the ordinance before we get into the guts of the ordinance. And currently, when it comes to signage on multi-tenant and multi-story buildings, the ordinance is silent. It assumes that every multi-tenant building is a traditional strip center right off of a highway, and it has no provisions for multi-story buildings with no access from the outside. Any of the things we're actually seeing being built in town. We've had to depend on interpretations of the code for many years. All this does is take our standards that we currently have and reword and adapt them to apply to different scenarios. So if you have a 3-story building, right now, all your tenant signage has to be on the first story if you read it literally. This allows us to have signage on different floors. If your building has spaces that wrap around the back and no longer have road frontage, well, the ordinance says your sign's got to be on the road frontage of your release space. And so we've got, it's difficult to enforce. And so we're just putting the current standards into wording that applies to a much broader spectrum of diversity of development that we're seeing. These aren't new standards, it's the same percentages in the same locations, just making it clear how it applies when the building goes vertical or when the building goes beyond a linear structure.
So correct me. Does the state now, and I'm just having a hard time, and I want to make sure that we understand. So when we have a building that's wrapped around, right, and there's, let's say there's, commercial all the way around, are we saying that each one of them now can have signage outside of the building?
Over the lease space. So if you make the bank building, or not the bank building, next to the bank at Bulverde Crossing, where Texas Regional Bank is, they're building a new structure. That's almost certainly going to need variances anyway, but it's got spaces on both sides. And assuming Bulverde Road wasn't there, because in most places it's not, we don't really have code provisions to talk about people facing the parking lot, what they're supposed to have, because the signage is based on the road frontage.
The road frontage, correct.
And so all this says is, if you wrap around, those people are entitled to a sign over their lease space as well.
Sure.
Yeah. And if you go vertical, like they have a porch walkway around the top section. Well, the second story is not accommodated at all. So, and those are different lease spaces. So all this is saying is, we're going to treat you kind of like you're a 1-story building floating above the other.
Right.
And you can also have a sign, even though you're on the second story and not facing the street. We've also got a couple of properties where there is no street frontage. There's a narrow driveway over here, and the building is way over here, and there's no direct frontage to a street. There's buildings in between them and the street.
Right.
And so I don't have a way to tell them what side of the building to use.
So,
This says.
I just don't want to, I guess what I was trying to understand that, let's say that these windows are your building, A, B, and C. So now do we have out here A, B, and C?
When you say out here.
Like away from the building, if they were allowed to
these
have
are
like
these are attached signs.
Okay.
Only. Yeah,
Just
this is
making
not,
sure.
yeah, we're not dealing with freestanding
Making
signs.
sure.
So how would this help us with the dentist's office that we had the issue with? Not that long.
But they had their sign above
They
it.
wanted to put it on the blade though, not.
So that's an architectural feature. It's not a story. So it wouldn't have helped that.
So they have one on this side and one on this side. Just one is up there, on the north side, right? And the other one is on the south side here, on the door, so.
I mean, we can't, right now, we cover, I don't know the exact numbers. Our ordinances allow by right maybe 10 to 15% of what's actually happening. We're trying to expand that to accommodate maybe 60 to 75% of what's happening. We're still gonna have 25% of people that need to come in and get a variance, but not everybody. It isn't the goal.
Yeah, we get it. We needed to fix the sign
But
ordinance.
it would have helped in that scenario.
Yeah.
We get it.
Going to change it. Like Ozzy Osbourne did.
I just don't, I just don't want us to be like 46 in New Braunfels now when you drive in. Every single one of them have one by this road,
No, these are not.
That's not where we want to go. So just want to make sure we don't have that.
Where does the suite number go on those suites in?
Usually it goes on the door.
So it does go on the door, so.
But that's not counted against their sign percentage.
No, I understand, but like say, like Helen was saying, so if you got a split level, but one of them goes from the front all the way to the back, that's the same suite number, but if you have like a half and half, so now they get one on the front and one on the back for two different companies.
Yeah, each space would have its own.
So, and then I think by apply for emergency services, you have to have the suite number of
Yeah,
the.
you have to have it. Yeah,
So
you can't just,
change
you
that.
can't get real inventive on a multi-tenant building.
Okay.
Because fire's gotta be able to
Yes,
figure
fire
out.
has to figure out
EMS.
exactly where it is.
Yeah.
Okay, Councilman Hawkins. Councilman Watson.
I had a couple of questions. Are we going to define terms like road frontage, main exterior entrance? I'm thinking buildings that have multiple entrances. What constitutes the main entrance? And then how are we going to determine what immediately adjacent signs mean with respect to the non-conforming sign exception when we're dealing either with multi-story buildings or multi-tenant buildings with signage on multiple signs? How are we?
So that one is language that's in the current code that I just kept because my mission here was not to make innovations.
Sure.
So that one's tough to explain, but it didn't spring from my head. So it's one of the big things we still need to fix.
Okay.
But
Defining those terms is something we may do after we get the bones.
some of these are in the ordinance definitions, in the main section of definitions.
Okay.
Other ones, they use the state definition or the generally accepted dictionary definition of the word. If we need to clarify that, we'll add a definition for it as well.
Okay, and then the only other question I have was, does this change impact any known current or pending projects that you can think of?
This, to the best of our ability, represents our current interpretation of the ordinance and the way we can enforce it. Those should not.
Thank you.
Great. Councilman Craven.
Yeah, from what I understand, this sets the groundwork for, building upon our further development over time. So I think it's a good thing and needs to be done.
I don't have anything to say. Good follow.
Okay, so let's make an amendment to change the ordinance of the city council, of the city of, or make a motion to change an ordinance of the city council. Jason, East Verde, Texas, amending the city of Verde Code of Ordinance, Chapter 3, Building Regulations, Article 3.08.102, permitted sign structures and general regulations to establish and delineate the requirements for attached signs on single-tenant, multi-tenant, and multi-story buildings, adopting a severability clause and establish an effective date.
Okay. You got it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Yeah,
Good job, Danny.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Danny.
all right. Hold on, we're not done. Okay. So, any public comments not related to posted agenda items by council?
I have one. Mike, I would like to request an executive session agenda item for our next meeting for council to consult with legal counsel about the roles and responsibilities of city officials under the charter and city ordinances. Can I get?
We would need approval from 3 other council members who asked for it. We would need to have 3 other council members signify that their approval with that. I agree.
Oh, okay.
Okay. We'll have it on the executive.
Thank you.
Any more comments? Anything else? Chairman,
I just signed up.
you can do,
That's great.
I'll let you go.
I'd like to thank council for good job tonight, listening to the concerns of citizens. The city was formed, to protect the health, safety, and welfare of our citizens. A lot of things don't appear, until you delve into them. I'd like to point out, there's things that you can pass that become almost impossible to enforce later on, and things evolve in landowners promise one thing, and so until you get it in writing or you put it in a plan, that's, you can't leave anything ambiguous. So I'd like to thank y'all for wanting clarity on the issue, because I would note that same landowner approved a gunite company, and then they erected the cement silo, and they told the city, this was when I was mayor, told the city that, oh, there's not cement in there, that's just sand. Well, they had a dry bunker for sand. And I had to argue, as mayor, to my staff that they're actually pumping cement And when you pump cement in a silo, it blows out with the turbocharger from the truck. You know, and they have a filter, but those filters clog really quick. So they rip, and most of the people don't clean that filter. And so, man, it looked like the thing was on fire. And so it had video after video, and the concrete company, and it kept telling the city, said, "Well, no, that's just sand. That's not the problem with Portland cement. It settles on stuff, and you get any little bit of dew, and it will touch your paint. You know, it's cement. You know, so you got to always watch out. Consider that people try to get away with whatever they can. So we appreciate you talking about this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, no more ado. We adjourn this meeting at 8:43 p.m.
Mike, are you still getting on a plane at 4:30 in the morning?